Welcome all, thank you for joining back. So in this tutorial we will talk about the VPC. As we know, it stands for the virtual private cloud. So we can compare VPC as any environment, right? Data center and whatever we set up, we have a basic requirement of having a network connectivity in place, right? For the server to talk to itself in inter server communication, as well as talking to the external world or accessing the server from the outside, right? So to have that setup, right, of networking in the cloud, there is a terminology of virtual private cloud. Okay, so here many people get afraid of subnetting, my IP address, things like that. So no need to afraid or fear on that part. Okay, we'll go through it very slowly. I'll try to cover how the VPC is configured in the cloud, and we'll take one by one each step. Okay, so here if you see the basic definition of the VPC is for the Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Okay, and it enables you to launch AWS resources into a virtual network, right? So basically we create a virtual network here, right, in the cloud, right? And whenever you launch any resource means what resource, like EC2, right? Or you create a database server, web server, so whatever you are creating, right, you can integrate that servers or database, whatever you create, right, into your own space of virtual network, right? So you build your own network and you can attach that in that, right? And VPC spans all of the availability zone in that region. So here one thing you need to take into mind, right, we discuss, right, Amazon has a basic building block of concept which they call it a region, right? Like Asia Pacific region, Mumbai region, right, US East, North Virginia region. So there are many regions, Canada regions, right? So those regions you have to choose in the beginning while you create any resources in that, right? So EC2 resources you choose, you have to drop down and select your region. So similarly, the VPC, the moment you choose your VPC, right, that VPC spans in that availability zone in the region, right? So it does mean that the VPC will work only in that region. If you want to build again a network or server in some other region, then you need to create a separate VPC, right, in that region. So that's you need to take into your mind. Okay, and you can add one or more subnet into the availability zone. Subnet is what? I know that the IP address or networking background people may not understand it easily, but you consider it any server or machine, or even your have a broadband connection in your home. So if you go to and check how it will talk to an external world, it's some kind of IP address schema, right? It's like your home address, right? Similarly, in the internet world, you have your address to your machine. So they called it the IP addresses. I will talk to you this more on the coming slides. Okay, so let's proceed further for now. So before going to the VPC of cloud, right, Amazon VPC, I would like to talk right now in the current setup without cloud. How does it look like in your office or corporate infra, right? Suppose you have an office, right, and inside this office you have this many servers or machines, right, which are connected to each other over a LAN. LAN is what? Local area network, right? So you connect it through some kind of switch, Cisco switch, Juniper switch, whatever switches, hardware that you keep in your data center, right? And those are all connected to the Ethernet cables, right? And then these all are talking to this switches, which is a kind of a layer 2 devices, right? And then you talk it through the over the LAN, and this switches further talk to your router at the backend, which usually a layer 3 device, and this further you connect your internet service provider with the router, right? So I'm not saying it's a perfect diagram, but it's a basic building block that I wanted to share so that you can understand which thing which we are going to talk and how it is look like in the Amazon VPC. So this is your on-prem office network infra. So you have a PCs or servers which are connected over LAN through the switches in turn connected to router has some kind of internet service provider, broadband service, Tata, Reliance, Bharti, right? There are many service provider, Vodafone, right? So through which your internet connectivity is connected, and there is a firewall in between them somewhere where you can block your access as per your desired ports, right? Port 80 for web server, some SSH, telnet, right? Whatever you want to access or showcase on the entire world, you can block it here. So this is your basic on-premises office network, which is currently inside this office. There is a data center and you keep all these things inside your office and manage it this out. But how the things will get changed when we talk about the cloud? So let's check this out. Okay, so when we go to the cloud, right, so what happens, things will change very dramatically here. Okay, so what will happen is, if you see here, the outer edge, right, outer edge AWS Cloud. So you log into AWS Cloud using outer create using a user ID password, right? You logged in here, and then you choose a region, right? Mumbai region, APAC region, right? North Virginia region, US region, things like that. You select your region, and in that region you create your VPC inside a availability zone, because VPC always lies in the availability zone. So VPC is an option, virtual private cloud, that you create, right, in that cloud, right, and you assign a CIDR IP. CIDR is a classless interdomain routing, which is required a IP address schema, right, of 32 bits, right? So this IP address you assign to a VPC, right? So it's like a super subnet, right? It's a network IP basically, which /16 will give you a max level of IP, right? So this VPC you will have to assign an IP address, and inside the VPC, whatever you create, right, if you just see the whole picture, right, you can create a public subnet where you put your web server. When we call a public subnet, it means this subnet has access to the internet. So any user, end user, for example, some user access a Facebook server, right? So this user can come via this internet gateway through this router or router, access the net router table and access the Facebook web server page. But the same user cannot access the Facebook database servers, for example, right? Because these servers lies in the private subnet, right? And external users no need to get visibility for this. So we can define the servers category based on the subnets, public subnet, private subnets, and we can keep the servers in that, right? So there are many terminology when we talk VPC. There are many terminology that we need to go through it. So there are many things that we need to go through it, right? Like internet gateways, router, route table, network ACL, security group, and web server. We'll go through each one of these points one by one. Okay, going further. So I just want to showcase you, this is the broad overall VPC network setup, basic setup that we need to configure it while we build any VPC, right, virtual private cloud for us. Okay, so that's how it is, right? We'll talk it more, and also we'll do the practical after this theoretical. Okay, let me go to the next. So VPC subnet is subnet that you specify the CIDR block. So we reserve this CIDR block for our VPC, right, 10.0.0/16, right? So if you go to this site, let me show you this site also, which is very good site, and whenever you building any subnet, you can check. I'll go over here, and if you see here in this site, you put this IP address 10.0.0/16. So if you give this IP address range, how many hosts you can create in this, right? 65,536. So this side, if you change this, right, so this is your supernet basically, right, and it will automatically give you the mask, usable IPs, last IP, things like that, right? And if I create a private subnet of /1, and I'll give this IP /24, right? So if you see now in that supernet, these are the servers I can create in the public, and if I reserve this 2/0, then again for private we can keep it like that, right? So this is the site CIDR.xyz. I recommend you go to this site and play it around, right? See how does it changes the value and how do you learn from this, right? So we in the AWS Cloud, we can give the maximum IP of the subnet is /16, and the minimum IP that we can give is /28, which will give me only 16 hosts. But actually on the ground, it does not give me 16 hosts because AWS reserve 5 IP all the time, right? And so eventually when I'll show you when we do the practical, that we will get only 11 hosts, or when we reserve /24, then we'll get -5. It means 251 hosts of this. Okay, yes. So this is the subnet that we need to create, right, inside the VPC. VPC has one more component which we discussed right earlier, that was a security group. So security group, if you see it like a internal firewall, right? We can say it, right? Security group act as a firewall, right? And where do you assign this security group? So AWS has a very good concept of attaching a firewall to each of your component, right? So that you know how much granular level of security, right? Every individual component has their own firewall security group port setting, right? So if one is breached, it does not mean all will be breached, right? So it's the rigidity and robustness that you can create in your setup, right? So security group act as a firewall for your instance to control inbound and outbound traffic, right? Security group act at the instance level, not at the subnet level, right? So you define your entire subnet CIDR and you attach a security group to that subnet. No, you always attach a security group to your instances, the server, the things that you're making it, right? You can specify allow rule, but you cannot deny rule. If you see here, I've given a sample here, right? So basically it says that what all rule you want to allow, source this, right? And the protocol what you want to allow, port range that you want to allow, but there's no description that you don't want to allow, deny. So it always gives you an option to allow rules, not the deny. Things that you're not allowed, so obviously that will be not allowed. You can specify separate rules for inbound and outbound traffic. Yes, inbound rules. Similarly, I can add outbound rules, right? Security groups rules enables you to filter traffic based on protocols and the port numbers. Of course, port numbers are there and the protocols. I can define either all. I can give a, for example, for if it is telnet, port 23, if it's SSH, port 22, things like that. Right, if it's HTTPS 443, HTTP port 80, so all these ports and protocol we can define it over here. One very important thing that we need to take in mind, security group are stateful. This is the very particular questions. If you're going for exams also, it asks all the time. If you send a request from your instance, the response traffic for the request is allowed to flow in regardless of inbound security group rules. So what is happening here is, suppose you have made outbound rules and you have allowed some access, right? For example, inbound you are trying to access it SSH, right? So SSH you enable the port 22, right, in the inbound, so someone from outside can access the SSH, but you have not specified the outbound response rule for the SSH. So what will happen is it will automatically allow that outbound response. So the moment your inbound is allowed, it will say, oh, okay, inbound is allowed. If the server responds back, right, after you taken the inbound session, right, on that port it will respond back. So it will not see if you have not allowed explicitly on the outbound rule for that port, it will be allowed automatically, right? So that's what here it says, the response traffic. So either inbound response is outbound or outbound response is inbound, right? So the response traffic, either it is allowed in both way. So that is why it is said is a stateful. Okay, so this is things that you need to keep in mind. Okay, so one aspect of VPC was security group, which we discussed. Next layer of security is network ACL, right? So there is one more layer of security in this VPC, sorry. One is firewall, which is attached to instance level, right? Every server has their own security group, or you can create one security attached to all of them, whatever you wish as per design requirement. But there is one more layer of security, which is option available is network ACL, right? Which is a access control list. So network ACL is the optional layer of security. Obviously, it's a second layer of security of your VPC that act as a firewall for controlling traffic in and out. So this also has an inbound rule, outbound rule. You will see it's both looks like a similar. Yes, they are quite similar, but the thing and difference is that the security group it attached to the instance level, while network ACL, right, network ACL is attached at the subnet level, right? So you have to attach each subnet in a view must associate with the network ACL. Network ACL has a separate inbound and outbound rule, and your VPC automatically comes with the modified default network. So whenever you create a VPC, right, it automatically comes with a default network ACL, but you can create your own custom ACL also, and you can assign it. So that's the way you can design. One important aspect of network ACL is it's a stateless. So security group was stateful, and this is stateless. Stateless means inbound rule you define, but you forgot to define an outbound rule for port SSH, then it will not allow. it will deny that. So that, which means that response to allowed inbound are subjected to the rule for outbound. So you have to define here both inbound and outbound rules for particular ports, otherwise it will not, one-way traffic it will receive, other response traffic it will not, it will block. So that we need to carefully define. Either we define this or you do not define this, you just wanted to leverage the security group. So that is the additional layer of protection that we can build it in our VPC. Okay, I hope it is clear. Next is the route table. So route table is it is created the moment you create any VPC, right? It creates a route table. So route table contains set of rules called routes that are used to determine where network traffic from your subnet gateways. So now you are inbound traffic, outbound traffic, you are kind of firewall things are there, right? But what will the traffic you want to talk to the internet from your server to the internet, right? So to happen that, right, there is a route table. So every VPC comes with the main route table, right, which contain default destinations, right? But you have to attach that, of course, in that custom route table also you can build as per your requirements, right? So the moment you create a VPC, we will show these all things, we will show in the practical next session. Okay, so when we create a VPC, it comes with the default route table and we can attach our customer route table. So customer route table is something like that. You said from your subnet where your servers are kept, right, you said that whenever it is talking to internet gateway, right, it will talk to all these IPs, 000 IPs in the internet, any IP. And how they will talk? They will talk via the internet gateway. You will say, what is internet gateway now? Okay, so internet gateway, I'll come to this slide. So internet gateway is obviously, as the name suggests, allow communication between a VPC and to the outside world, that is internet. Okay, to enable access from internet instance in the subnet in a VPC, you need to attach an internet to your VPC. Right, you need to attach the internet to you. How do you attach it? You define this internet gateway in the route table, right, inside the VPC. So as you create VPC, you get a route tables, right? So let me show the picture again, right? Where it is, yeah, here. So you define an internet gateway. It comes with the router, inbuilt router in the VPC, right? So whenever you create a VPC, it will come with the inbuilt router, right? In this inbuilt router, you have a route table defined. So you have to add an internet gateway and you attach this internet gateway to this route table, okay, to this router. So the moment it is attached, this path is established, right? So first layer is your server, second layer of firewall, it is your security group, right, which is attached to the server. Next layer of security, additional firewall, optional firewall that you can define here, which is a network ACL, right, network access control list. And then it talks to this table, which define that whether you want internet gate connectivity or you want virtual private gate connectivity, right, for your VPN connection, where you want this traffic to go out, this path, right? So that you can define here. So for public, obviously everybody want to go via this path, which is the internet. For private subnet, everybody will want to go and keep your restriction via the VPN, virtual private gateway path, right? So that's the difference. Okay, so here we finish our VPC and we will go to the next practical session shortly and I'll share with you all details. Thanks for the time.